Well, and I think our culture has this idea that, marriage like holds you back or slows you down, and you don't want to settle down until you've done everything.
The ball and chain.
Yeah. And what you might lose in like some agility in your ability to just pick up and go somewhere or take an
make
opportunity.
your own decisions.
Yeah. Like whatever you lose in that, you gain in someone who is with you to offer that encouragement, to offer the inspiration, to offer the confirmation of something that maybe the Lord put on your heart. And I don't think marriage gets quite enough credit for that.
We're here with two of our favorites, Whitney and Tanner Lowe. Whitney is a content creator and influencer, and Tanner is a pastor, recently planted a church. And so welcome, Whitney and Tanner.
Thank
so
you.
good
It's
to
our
be
favorite.
here.
Yeah, we love it.
We love having you. So how would you guys say you've changed individually over these 8 years? Maybe something that you didn't expect, a change in yourself that you're like, I didn't expect that.
We started dating when we were 19.
Wow.
Yeah, really.
So
Wow.
part of it is like
You were youngins.
we became people together.
I think maybe when you met me, I was really ambitious and I was like a big go-getter. And I still have a lot of that. But I've felt at times like maybe our conflict is that you are really good at self-improvement and at looking for ways to, you get really into like fitness and healthy eating, and you go through these phases where I used to kind of be that person. Maybe not for healthy reasons, but I used to be the one who was really like, here's our plan to fix all these problems. And I think at points you've kind of been like, how do we create routines that help us succeed? And how do we do this? And how do we have habits in our life that help our family grow? And I've been a little resistant because the last few years have been so much change and so much demanded and so much emotional energy that I'm like, I don't have that. And I think the positive is that it's very like Holy Spirit driven for me a lot of the time. Like when I'm at my best, it's like, I don't need to have a plan for this. I can let the Lord lead me. But when I'm not like in tune with that means nobody's doing good.
Right.
So I feel like that might be one where I used to just be kind of the driver in a lot of that like self-improvement and making sure we're like optimizing our life. And you've had to drag me a little bit in the last few years.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. But what you said about what is kind of running our life right now with young kids and demands and feeling like we're treading water a lot of the time, what you've kept me steady in is that perspective, that bigger perspective of how God's working, even when I don't have the time to have a 13-step morning routine that I love and makes me feel alive. You help me see the bigger perspective of, God's working even when it feels out of control. And that's been helpful.
Because what's so interesting is, you think about a family, kind of maybe the marriage life cycle. So we get married, we jump into the honeymoon phase, which we know from research lasts about 30 months. So it's about, let's say about 3 years. So 0 to 3, you're kind of in this honeymoon, a lot of changes, you're adjusting to those, kind of figuring out who you are, your identity as a couple. And then you move into the disillusionment phase, which is kind of years 3 to 5. And that's kind of when, okay, now we know kind of what we're about and know how the other functions, and some of these expectations that I haven't really been met. Like we just can easily get disillusioned as we start having kids and more responsibilities and just all of this. But what's interesting, the phase that you're in is the conflict phase. And this, again, every couple's different, but this is kind of between years 5 and 8. And that's when, the disillusionment can turn into all these power struggles. And now we're battling through this. How have you guys kind of navigated just learning how to deal with conflict in a way that works for you guys?
Well, I think we knew for sure that things were starting to feel tough. Like I feel like last year we must have had a conversation at some point where we were just like, this is not feeling so good. And there were so many things that were going on in our life. Like we moved back from California, which is his hometown, home state, to my hometown. He started a new job. We had, a second really small kid in a pretty short amount of time. Like all this stuff is happening. And so we knew there was a lot kind of working against us. And I think we also knew that we didn't have the immediate capacity to just cut any of that out, you know?
Right.
I mean,
Mhm.
they're
No,
all
that's the part of
Yeah.
it that you
Right.
can't, like, that stuff is what it is.
Yeah.
It's there.
we got to work, got to
Yeah.
have, you got to keep the kids
Yeah.
alive,
Mhm.
important.
You need a place to live.
Yeah.
You
Right.
gotta have jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we also knew like, okay, and everyone says, have a date night, have a date night.
Mhm.
We might not be able to do that in the way that people say because we are limited financially, we are limited with childcare, we are limited
Right.
with so many things that come with ministry even.
Mhm.
That we just kind of had to, I think, have that moment of like, we're not leaving. We're both in it. Neither of us feel like, you know, we might be struggling, but we also, I think, I do remember having a conversation. We were like, we are both in this. We are good. If we have a rough year, we have a rough year. And that was even just that little thing for me. I think I remember feeling, okay, this is where they say it's hard. You know, this is where they say people start to make decisions that are not healthy for their marriage. And I know that Tanner is in it. I know that I'm in it. And we've talked in the past about even just like meeting weekly, how that has been such a
Oh,
lifeline.
that is his love language or what?
The man loves a routine. He won't leave me
Every
alone.
week,
Yes.
you could see him. He was shaking. His eyes dilated.
We
It
get
was
to talk about the
beautiful,
budget.
yeah.
It's beautiful. Yes.
Well, now the problem is stop talking about the budget so much. We got other stuff going on.
There's got to be more beyond the budget.
Right.
But what would, because I was going to ask you the question, what has helped you move through that stage or to continue to maintain during this more difficult stage? And it sounds to me, you kind of answered my question, but there might be more you want to add. Conversation, communication about it, letting each other know like, hey, we're in it. We're not going anywhere. This is hard, but we're going to get through this together. What would you say has helped? What, and anything beyond that?
I have a short answer, and then you go.
Okay.
My short answer is just like humor. I think needing to have really constant touch points of like, we like each other and our friends, and we have fun together, and other people don't understand my humor the way you understand my humor. And like, we've done a lot of work to get to this point. That is like so key. And I think when we're not having any fun together ever, even if it's just like making fun of our kids a little bit,
Yeah.
you know,
That's the best part of being a
I know
parent
it.
right there.
Oh my
just say
gosh.
the craziest thing. But
All
yeah,
in love,
that's been
of
good.
course.
Oh, of
Yes,
course. But
we love them.
you know,
The pastor who did our premarital counseling used to describe it as every couple needs a little pressure release valve where you can press on and it just, you can feel the tension release a little bit. And I think something like what you're describing is that for us is, hey, yeah, we're going to have this regular meeting. We're having conversations all the time about how to keep this family running. But at that regular meeting, can we get our eyes a little bit above the water and look farther out and have just some sweet moments? And so if we can't have a date night, I started doing some silly things like grabbing a pint of ice cream that's on sale and for that budget meeting and having a little... Yeah, it's on sale because it's a budget meeting. So we're gonna...
You can save your coupons.
Yes, exactly.
It's
And,
the ice cream that expires the next day.
Yeah. Eat it
finally
now.
finish
Forever hold
it.
it.
Pregnant me.
It doesn't
Get
see you
through
the
whole
next
thing.
day. Okay, no.
Yeah, no, I think we're good at making fun of ourselves too, which that diffuses a lot of tension as well. When it's like, it's really annoying some days if he tells me, if he makes some little joke, it feels like a dig more than a joke. But if I can make it first and just kind of be like, yeah, I know I'm a little ridiculous about this. I think we're both pretty good at that. Because if you never have that moment that reminds you like why you're with this person in the first place, however tiny, I do think that compounds really quickly. And it gets really hard to dig yourself out of it after a while.
The part of marriage that feels easy right now is just being excited for what I see God doing in her life. It's easy to see the gifts that she has. It's easy to see I feel like I come up with more ambitious goals for her than she does for herself. Because
We're shocked to hear it.
Yeah.
Everyone cannot believe you.
And so that side of encouraging has always come really easy. Like, oh my gosh, you've got so many cool opportunities coming up, and I can't wait to see that. And I'd love to see how that overlaps with what we're doing at church and all this stuff. So I feel like that's something that comes natural to both of us.
And I love that because it reminds me of like a Gideon, to where, the angel of the Lord appeared and kept calling him, mighty warrior, calling out what Gideon wasn't aware of. Gideon couldn't see that about himself. And so there was a way in which that angel was drawn out something that was true, which is kind of what you're saying, even though, I sometimes have more ambitious goals for Whitney than maybe she has. But there's a way in which that's kind of, mighty warrior. Like you're calling out something that maybe she
Right.
doesn't see, that
Right.
that maybe she'll aspire to. And I mean, I saw that with Aaron around how many years did I tell you needed to go back and get your
Ugh,
doctorate? And
forever.
she's like, I can't do
Just
that.
not the
There's
right
not
time. And then it presented, and
Yeah.
it was time. I had to choose. And
She's one class away now.
yes,
Oh
So
my God.
just finished my second to last with an A.
Nice.
Yay.
Not that that matters, but to me it does. But this is, as you were talking, and as you were talking too, I know for me and Whitney, this may be your experience as well, that we don't have to do these things alone.
Yeah.
And there's something so valuable about you saying, I see these things that God has for you. And I'm going to not only cheer you on, but I'm going to be there with you. So you
Right.
don't have to do those things alone. And there's something, I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now if it wasn't for Greg.
Yeah.
Standing firm in that, because there's times I forget that I feel so alone. And then he reminds me, oh, wait, you're not alone. He's with you.
Well, and I think our culture has this idea that, marriage like holds you back or slows you down, and you don't want to settle down until you've done everything.
The ball and chain.
Yeah. And what you might lose in like some agility in your ability to just pick up and go somewhere or take an
Make
opportunity.
your own decisions.
Yeah. Like whatever you lose in that, you gain in someone who is with you
Yes.
to offer that encouragement, to offer the inspiration, to offer the confirmation of something that maybe the Lord put on your heart. And I don't think marriage gets quite enough credit for that. And I also don't think we often allow ourselves into that space with our spouse. Some people just don't think that that's part of the deal. And maybe for everyone it's not, but at least for us, I do think being able to like help the other person discern what God's up to has been a cool, I'd say almost even maybe newer thing. Like we didn't do a ton of that. I feel more confident anyway, looking at your life and saying, this looks like a spiritual attack to me. And I think this is making you question something that God has given you. And I don't know if I would have felt that confidence our first year, second year of marriage.
Yeah.
So we're still figuring
and
it
it's
out.
probably totally natural, normal. It takes, they say it takes at least 7 years, if not 14 years, to go from me and kind of who I was as an individual and thinking like an individual to really functioning like a team. So you guys are right in there, and that's what you're saying. I mean, we've kind of begun to figure out how to be a team and the beautiful benefits of all that. So you're coming out of, or you're maybe in that, quote unquote conflict stage that a lot of couples around your number of years married, 8, are in. What would you say you've learned about conflict? What's helped you? How's maybe your conflict different now than it was when you first got married?
I mean, I can answer very plainly in saying I was a yeller in conflict for like always, my whole life. But when we got married, I remember really early on, we even had a conflict about yelling where I was like, I don't think this is like an inherently bad, like it's just how you express yourself. And I do think the Lord has really changed my heart on that, and just needing to like, oh yeah, and I'm not saying I'm perfect and never yell, but just like, this is not a respectful way to communicate, and this is not a respectful way to engage in this. And
What's interesting, just as a side note, that we have a gentleman here, Doug Summers, who is always looking at what are people searching for online around marriage. So he's always helping us. And do you know one of the top searches is, what do I do when my spouse yells at me?
Wow.
So you were certainly not
wow.
alone
Yeah.
in that.
that's really
And that
interesting.
happens more than probably we even admit. But it sounds like
Yeah.
that's what God's been teaching you.
Yeah, well, and just, there's that verse that says, your anger does not bring about God's righteousness in James, and realizing like that's almost always true. Like if I am communicating myself, even if I am justified in my feelings, it is not going to bring about anything positive for me to indulge that anger in the context of conflict. And that's still really hard. Like I think my go-to feeling is definitely anger. Like everything kind of filters through that for me. But that's been a big challenge that I think has definitely changed, where even if I'm not perfect about it all the time, I at least don't feel justified in doing it. And I know it's something that requires like remedy and an apology.
How about for you, Tanner?
I think my unhealthy way of handling conflict early on was just trying to pacify and smooth over things before anything was actually resolved, and then harbor plenty of resentment later on. And so the growth area for me, which I think I've gotten better at,
We'll see. You better tell
You
me
can
what
tell
it
me
is. Yeah.
She will neither let you know.
Or she's gonna light you up.
is rather than just trying to get through it and normalize the relationship and get through the conflict, to really actually process what I'm feeling and how to communicate that well, so that it's not just an easy way to harbor resentment later on. And that means for us that that conflict has sometimes taken a lot longer because I'm a slow processor.
Yeah, what's it like for you, Tanner? What was it like for you when Whitney would yell or be upset, intense with emotion?
Yeah.
As well as what's it like to hear her say, yeah, I see that there's a different way.
Yeah. Well, my dad had just a real bad temper, and so I always remember I could tell if what kind of mood he was in within 5 seconds of him walking in the door, how he closed the door, and then if I needed to go hide or if it was safe to just be around. And so I think I carried a lot of that into our marriage. And so when anger presented itself like she was describing, I would just shut down, and it was time to peacemake at any cost. Forget what I was feeling, but forget what I might be hurt about. And so that's how it really felt to me, and that's what I was kind of wrestling with when you would deal with anger like you described it. And so to hear you talk about that, I know it's gotten so much better, and our conflicts are a lot less frequent now, but we handle them so much better, and I do not feel the same tendency to need to pacify in the same way.
And I think you realize too that I'm actually not out to get
No,
you.
yeah, we're on the same page a lot more.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I think there's a weird fine line at this point too between avoiding conflict because we're tired and we know that we're not going anywhere, and also picking our battles and taking that time to process which part of this is something that we are struggling with that we need to grow in, and which part of this is just a fight we don't need to have right now that I can really fully release. I think that's the difference, is am I capable of letting this go genuinely and not holding it against you? Or is this something that I need to maturely bring up and just say, can you not do that? Or can you do it differently? And then you not getting offended, or whatever direction it's going. The other person being able to hear that and say, sure, fair enough. Don't need to be offended by that call out. And we've gotten, I think, a lot better at that communication because of parenting, because who has the energy to tiptoe? So it's kind of you changed this diaper really badly. Can you do it differently next time? He's like, you got it. We're moving on.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
And
you changed the diaper really bad.
There's a right and a wrong.
Do you have a picture you could post?
The tape goes in the back, Greg.
Just do it better.
It's on the baby's head. It's not. Yes.
I was just curious if you guys felt like you had that 7-year, did that 7-year itch number line up for you guys, or the 5 to 8 year conflict window, or whatever it is?
Would hit much earlier for us.
Over 2 years.
And I appreciate too, Whitney, you just being authentic and transparent about the yelling. That was me. And I prayed and prayed and prayed, Lord, take this away, because I had a dad who was a screamer and I hated it. And I swore I would never be that coming into our marriage. And I know I got better.
I just brought that out naturally.
I got a lot better just with prayer and continuing to work on it. And I'll never forget our 24-year-old son. He and I were just having this conversation last week when he was 3 years old. My voice escalated, and I saw him run underneath the dining room table and curl up. And he was just looking at me like this little out of the corner of his eye. And I was like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm never doing this again. I don't want my children to be fearful in any moment. And so it takes bravery, courage to go down that journey, because I know there's so many, especially moms, going, this isn't who I want to be. And I don't want to treat my kids like that. And I don't want to treat my husband like that.
Totally.
And there's victory. With Jesus, there's victory and there's hope for it. And you're saying, you're on the journey of improving. And it sounds like you guys are doing just some really great things. I just love sitting on this side of the table hearing. But you had asked us a 7-year itch. I'm trying to remember where we even were at 7 years.
I don't
We
know.
were we were finishing graduate
I want to go
school.
under the table now.
You were finishing your doctorate. We had 2 kids at that point. We dealt with conflict immediately, and things really got better.
Yeah. I just wanted peace at all costs. And so I would just sit there as an empty shell and allow her to say whatever just to appease her, and just maybe we'll move on and can watch a movie here. next. But then I kind of like you, I had to learn that there's value in conflict. Like when combat is never healthy.
Right.
So the unhealthy ways that we would go about doing conflict never worked. But conflict, it's such an opportunity. That's where I began to learn more about me, about her, and about us. And so I see that now. And so again, my personality, I don't think any of us love conflict.
I think there's days you believe I do.
I'm most certainly aware that
Sometimes I'm
that's a
ready to tackle
possibility.
stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you wake up and go, it's a great day for a fight?
Every so often, I'm like, we should really have this conversation right now. And I'm going to just figure out how to start it. And it's
I'm just
often,
gonna launch into it.
11:30.
Yeah.
It's not the time.
Yeah.
But I see that. I see the value in it. In our goal shifted from resolving to really just learning how to repair conflict. That was a huge transition for us, just learning just the art of repairing. So when we get sideways, which still happens, that we know how to come back around and bring that just to a repair to where we both feel, okay, you hear me, you cared about how I felt, and we don't have this pressure to go, and what do we do? How do we solve it? How do we make sure this never happens again? We just know it's going to happen. Let's just get really good at repairing. So we do good sometimes, and then other times it takes us a little bit. So I think that was like you. I had to really understand my belief about conflict and the deep ingrained, desire to just never experience it. Let's just avoid it.
And we continue to.
And we
figure it
do
out.
that very differently.
Yeah.
So it's great. We always love that you guys are so willing to be
Yes.
honest and just to put it out there. In our country, the average number of years married before divorce is 8.
Oh wow!
And so that's what we love. This idea of what can we learn from those first 8 years and really do them well. And that's why we appreciate the lessons and what God's been teaching you along the way. I mean, that's just I love what you're saying. So thank you guys.
Always a joy to have you guys.
Oh my gosh, so fun to be here.